How do you balance the time between family and work and marriage and being a father, and also taking time to plan lessons?
After that eventful morning, I am heading home. Yeah, so basically the way you look at it from my perspective in instruction, especially on a college level, it's 2/3 preparation, 1/3 delivery. So the 1 hour class, there's like about two hours or more of preparation, and that does also include outside classroom interaction. So counseling sessions, grades, email feedback, because you got to remember also students also have needs in regards to other things that impact their learning situations. So so you have to be available for all those things. So yeah, so there's a lot to go. I think that's part of where people don't really understand educators in regards to how much work it does take.
So on a personal level, I'm just trying to figure out, how you balance all of that.
You just do it. I don't know. I there's no like magic because it's a case by case basis. So I mean, I plan what I do. So I plan what days I do my lesson plans. On weekends, substantial portion of that time, my weekends are taken up with my law school work and then also my teaching preparation. During the week, my time is taken up with the healthcare job because I work even late into the evening. So I think in the end, what something gives is when you say balance, there's really no balance because what I end up giving is my personal time. So as you can see, my weight has increased. I eat much more out of stress, and I don't exercise. So there's the loss in balance, is personal care in regards to that. So I still keep up hygiene and stuff. So it's not like I've gone crazy, but yeah, I don't have time to exercise and and be more intentional in regards to my diet. So that's the trade-off, unfortunately. So in the long term, that's not sustainable.
Study tips or programs that you might recommend for someone considering law school? And I know it's going to be case by case and depending on where they are and their finances.
Well, it's a little bit more than that. And things that you want a short answer, there's no short answer for that. That really comes down to is first you have to know what kind of learner are you. A lot of people don't know what kind of learner they are. That means that are you a visual learner? And we're all mixed. Many people are mixed learners, but what is it that tends to stick? So basically, what is it that creates stickiness in the information? Stickiness meaning that it goes into deep memory, not just learning just enough to pass an exam. If that's the strategy you use for undergraduate, that's not going to work for law school, guaranteed. Especially if you want to be successful, if you're looking at, depending upon where you are in your life, trying to get internships, externships, stuff like that, because it's highly competitive. So one, figure out what kind of learner you are. And then two, really a couple best approaches in law school learning is that you just got to do the material, okay? Study aids help you to kind of identify, but at the same time though, if you lean too much on them, many of them are going to be generic because the professors are going to teach, but they're going to focus on key areas that even in their own specialty or their own perspective is important. And the study aids may not necessarily be. depending upon what type of, what's the subject matter. So first of all, you got to do the readings. Second of all, you got to create your own personal outline of it. You can use the outline in regards from the book, but when you self-generate it, that creates that stickiness that you can get into deep memory. But outlining the subject matter is very critical. And then the third thing is practicing your writing. And that requires to also read cases, read the briefs, build your vocabulary up, and make sure you understand the legal theories behind the issues. So it's more about, again, developing a way of thinking. One of the key things about law school is that it's really to train you how to think. And if you apply yourself in that way, then you'll be successful. So in regards to study aids, there are several study aids out there. And again, depending upon type of learner, but Barbary is one. Barbary will provide actually for free first year up to third year outlines, and your law school will provide that information for you. Usually in the first week of matriculation, there'll be a Barbary representative, there'll be a Themis representative. These main programs, because what they want to do is they want you to get you accustomed to the program, because guess what? At the end, you're going to take a bar prep program. That's where the money comes in. That's what they charge for, and then you pay by basically the bar prep program.
So what bar prep program are you doing?
I'm using Barbary as my main program, but then also the bar examiner. They also provide question testing packages for around $145, $200 that you can also practice past exams questions, so you can kind of get used to how they're phrased, what their questions are, how it's done, and so you can get supplementals like that, and then you can also have various other ones like Adaptabar. It's good for you also. Again, it's about keep practicing and looking at where your strengths and weaknesses are. So, but Barbary is one. Themis Bar Review is another program, and then also I also recommend JD Advising also, because they have good outlines that are also multiple. There's not just words, but they use also pictographs or infographics, so that can also help with the stickiness as well. So JD Advising is good. The other thing too is podcasts. The Bar Prep Toolbox podcast is extremely good. They're geared towards the California bar, but a lot of the information, especially substantive information like evidence and stuff, goes beyond just specifically to California. It applies to the general multi-state bar MBE examination. So again, you're working out. You can listen to those podcasts. You go for a walk to relieve your stress. You can listen to that, and you can listen to that also during school. So that would be a good supplement as well to kind of get you being exposed to the legal theories as you go through. So those are some of the opportunities there.
What's been, so far when you look back, what's been the most challenging part of balancing school with work for, the adult learners out there, or people that are older, non-traditional, thinking about going to law school at an older age?
Well, see, again, the experience, see, this is the thing, I'm not, and I know this may frustrate some people, it's not one size fits all. And the thing is, in the last 2 to 3 years, we've gone through some extraordinary circumstances. So, I started off law school in a very traditional setting. I went to classes, I sat for my exams and so forth. And then, and again, I attended an ABA accredited school, so versus some of these non-accredited schools, and that's a whole different discussion there. But so you have a required number of basically hours that have to be, and so they had to get an emergency acceptance in regards to allowing teaching hours via Zoom, but we still have to go in person for testing. So my first year of law school was just that. It's in-person testing. Lectures and stuff, and then 2 years after that we were under COVID, so it was via Zoom. So that can also be a challenge, because one thing is to be in person and to have a Socratic method of teaching and learning back and forth. sometimes it can be very difficult when you're on Zoom. It challenges some of that intensity. And so that in itself created that challenge. And then in the past year, we've gone back to more traditional. So again, I think the biggest challenge is that the upside with the Zoom was that it allowed me to have a better work balance in school because it cut down all that commute. So that was more time that I could basically study as well as save the financial pressures in regards to gas and everything else like that and travel time. But the downside is, again, like I said, is the education piece. So in regards to interaction, learning, and stuff like that. So it just depends on it. But I think that always the biggest challenge as an adult learner is really if you already have a career or a job, is managing those expectations and then working under the stress of
Right. Do you find that you had to prioritize one over the other, or obviously maybe it depended on a timing?
No, I made a decision. It's just like with anything, you know. Many of us in my generation, you know, especially in the '90s, it's like, oh, multitasking. That's what, you know, successful people do. And really, you know, after much more development and better understanding of cognitive development and learning, is that multitasking is not actually accurate. It's really more multi-focus, but you can really only focus at one thing at a time. Okay, that's just like distracted driving. You can't drive, read your text, watch a video. I mean, the brain doesn't work, but you have to focus. So you create muscle memory and all those things, but that helps to create more intense focus. So it's the same thing here. And so I made a conscious decision that school comes first. So I do the best I can with work. I make sure I hit my major deadlines. But at the same time, I had to accept the fact that if I needed more time for a project stuff, I would ask for it. And overall, I had, you know, good supervisors and team members to work with. So I was very fortunate. Sometimes it's not that way, and that's what make it a challenge. So
Right. Now, did your job always know that you were going to law school while you were, because obviously sometimes some jobs, they don't care. I mean, point is they don't care about your future goals. They have are expectations about your current position.
Well, yeah, and that's understandable. I mean, the organizations, you know, they hire you. It's a contractual arrangement where, you know, again, they're hiring you for a performance, and in exchange for that, it's a salary or a compensation. So there's an arrangement. So as long as you meet those, you know, straightforward, obligatory. The relationship side is what complicates that type of contractual arrangement, because many times the expectation level may be different from one supervisor to the other, and that's the part that gets missed. So as long as you're performing, but you may have a supervisor that does not appreciate, like you're saying, your life goals. Mm-hmm. That has nothing to do with the contractual arrangement that you have with the organization. Hey, I produce this, I meet these ends. You may have individuals that's interjecting their own personal bias or their perceptions of equity. And so this is where those discussion comes in, and sometimes it can be very difficult. So, I mean, I'll be quite frank. I mean, I changed teams to work with another team and I was happy to do so, that I felt that the leadership was much more understanding in regards to my educational responsibilities.
So to anyone young or younger person out there considering law school, if you have any, advice, I'm thinking about going to law school. What advice do you have for me?
Okay, well, my first is know your why. So if you're thinking about law school, my first question to you would be why. Mm-hmm. And if you can't really literally in the 2 to 3 seconds come up with a why, then I would say take a moment then and step back and really think about it. And that's actually with anything. Right. You got to know your why. Okay, because that's what's going to get you up on days when you just feel overwhelmed. That's what's going to keep you going. Because the one thing about law is that it's a fight. And that's really what it is. Because people need fighters, you know, you know, especially those that just are the least represented or don't have the resources or the most vulnerable in our society. So when I say, know your why, because that's what's going to keep you going. If you don't have one, then law school, your odds of being successful is going to be diminished. Nothing's an absolute, but it'll just be much more challenging going forward. The other thing too is that you don't have to decide when you go into law school what kind of lawyer you're going to be. Just know that you want to be the best lawyer possible. Then explore. Use law school as a way, and it's going to go by fast, but in your second or third year, take a course that you may not be initially been interested in, but it sounds interesting. So say for example, land environmental law or education law or something that you always been intrigued by, but you're not sure. See if that's something that works for you. Go sit in court. See if you want to be a litigator. See if you want to work in the courtroom versus, say, transactional law like intellectual property or contracts and stuff like that. Explore those things and then determine that what kind of law you would like to be.
Is there a particular area of law that you were surprised to know you were actually more interested in or wanted to learn more about than before you started law school?
Well, I think for me, I wanted to be a litigator. The issue was that would I be good at it? So I had a little bit of a different issue. It's that I already knew my why. My fear was that what if my why, I wasn't good enough to meet that? Because that's what it is. If you watch enough American Idol, you have a lot of people who had a why to be singers. The question is that did they have enough to support that? Or whether it was delusional. See, that's the other thing too. So I'm fairly modest in regards to those things. So I've been happy to find that I actually, I feel that I can do it, but I feel that it's a good fit. I think the one area that I was surprised about that was appellate law. And appellate law is basically after the trial, when you go and a case goes on appeal, it's much more technical.
What is appeal? What does that mean?
Well, after a conviction or a ruling against a party, in our judicial system, the process is that you're allowed to appeal it, to seek to overturn. So say someone got convicted for a murder. They can appeal that, okay? You don't get a new trial. You can request a new trial, but normally not. What it is, you appeal that there's an error in law, or that there's that there's something else that needs to happen, and so it can get remanded for a new trial. Is one outcome, or it gets overturned, and then the person's released. So, and that's usually a different type of skill set because it's very technical. You're looking at basically if there was a error in the procedure. If there was basically error in the judge's instruction to the jury. So you're basically looking at very technical matters, and you're also looking at it requires a higher level of critical thinking in regards to the legal arguments, if there's flaws in them, and then therefore the party defendant has a right to get a new trial or get their conviction overturned because of those errors. And so that's a whole different field, actually. And so I actually enjoyed it, and I did very well in that course.
Well, thank you. Any closing remarks before before graduation?
Well, it's like with anything, it's just like you just find your why and just stick to it. Don't give up. Sometimes I tell you, there'll be days where you just you just don't feel like you can go any further. You're not burning both ends of the candle. You cut the candle in half and then burn those ends. So now you're burning four ends because you're just you're trying to make it. And I tell you, it's not easy. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Goes, oh yeah, buy my course and hope, and you find that's to me that's all garbage. What it comes down to is that
you have to do the work.
You got to do the work, but also have faith, and have faith in a higher power. And lean on your resource. In many ways, if it wasn't for my family and for my supportive spouse, it would be very, very difficult. So, and then also my network of friends and teammates, so it's like look for your tribe, look for your community, and you'll be surprised that there are resources out there that will help you get through it. And so just, you're not alone. So that's the other important thing, that you are not alone. So just keep the faith, believe in yourself, bet on yourself, okay? And you'll make it through, and you can be a success. And you will be a success, you know.
You're right. So yes. Khalid, you're not the favorite son.
Gonna be in a minute.
It's a huge area.